There's something quietly horrifying about taking out the trash and finding your entire reality sitting right on top, still perfectly intact, not even crumpled. It was 6:12 a.m. I remember the time because I'm obsessive like that. I always take the trash out before the garbage truck comes, which shows up like clockwork at 6:30. That morning, I tied up the bag, slipped on my sandals with one broken strap, and walked it to the bin by the curb. I opened the lid, and there it was, right on top. A glossy ultrasound printout. 8 weeks, clearly labeled. And a sticky note attached to it, in her handwriting. Don't forget to shred this. I stared at it for maybe a full minute, frozen, until the cold from the dew started seeping through my shirt. My heart didn't race. My jaw didn't clench. No dramatic reaction. Just this weird weight in my lungs, like the air had stopped working the way it used to. I didn't even know she was pregnant. I didn't take it inside. I didn't storm back in demanding answers. I did something way more pathetic. I quietly took the picture and slipped it into the back of my wallet. Then I went inside and made her tea like I did every morning, 2 bags of hibiscus, splash of almond milk, no sugar. She came down 15 minutes later, phone in hand, laughing at something. Wore that oversized hoodie she always steals from me after laundry day. Kissed me on the cheek like nothing was wrong. I waited. Maybe she'd say something. Maybe it was a surprise. Or a weird dream. Or some absurd prank. But nothing came. She just asked if we had oat milk left and whether I could pick up batteries later. The entire day passed like that. Normal. She went to work. I worked from home. She came back. We made dinner. She watched a crime docuseries while I pretended to read beside her on the couch, gripping the ultrasound in my pocket like a lifeline to a world I didn't understand. It wasn't until 2 days later that I found the second clue. She left her iPad unlocked on the bed. I know how this sounds. I'm not proud. I wasn't snooping, I swear. I just tapped the screen to check the time, and it opened right into a text thread, with someone saved as the most recent message. I told you he'll raise it. He's too soft to leave. I read that line over and over again like I was trying to unsee it. My name wasn't mentioned, but it didn't have to be. I knew. I knew exactly what that meant. I took the iPad, walked into the hallway, sat down by the laundry basket, and cried like a forgotten child. For hours. She came home late that night, told me traffic was hell, that her coworkers were insane, that she was exhausted and just wanted to shower and sleep. I nodded, numb, pretended I had a stomachache so I wouldn't have to lay beside her. I didn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling fan spinning so violently I thought the blades might come loose and fall. The next morning, she placed a tiny box on the kitchen table while sipping her tea. I wanted to wait, but I figured, why not now? She said, smiling like it was our anniversary. Inside was a positive pregnancy test, wrapped in tissue paper, like it was a gift. I'm pregnant, she said. I nodded slowly. She added, and before you ask, yes, it's not yours, but I want us to raise it. Together. Please don't overreact. I didn't speak. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just looked her straight in the eye, smiled wider than I ever had in my entire life, and said, "Oh, I won't overreact." Then I walked upstairs, grabbed my duffel bag, took my wallet with her ultrasound still inside, and left the house. Quietly. No goodbye. No note. She still doesn't know I saw the messages. Or the sticky note. Or that I'd already packed some cash and spare keys 3 nights ago. She thought I'd stay. She thought I'd raise it. She doesn't know I've already disappeared. I hadn't driven more than 10 miles before I pulled over. Not because I didn't know where I was going, but because I didn't know who I was anymore. I sat there, engine idling, staring at the steering wheel like it might tell me what to do next. I could feel the weight of everything pressing in, my hands trembling slightly, chest tight like someone had cinched a rope around it. And yet, even with the betrayal bleeding in my chest, part of me still worried if she'd eaten dinner. I stayed in a rundown roadside motel that night. One of those places with fluorescent lights that flicker in the bathroom and a strange smell in the walls, like mildew and expired shampoo. The mattress felt like it had springs made from coat hangers. But it was quiet. No one asking questions. No one telling me I was overreacting. I lay there in the dark, staring at the cracked ceiling, playing every moment in reverse. Every smile. Every subtle deflection. Every time she'd turned her phone over on the table or jumped in the shower the moment she got home. The signs weren't subtle, they were just easy to ignore when you're the kind of person who needs to believe love is enough. The morning brought no clarity, just more silence. I checked my phone, 12 missed calls, 3 voicemails. The last one was her crying. Not sobbing. Just this soft, manipulative tremble in her voice. Curtis, please. I knew it was going to be hard to hear, but I didn't think you'd run. We're married. This doesn't have to change everything. It's still us. Still us? Us died the second she handed me a test like it was an anniversary card. I spent the next few days holed up, moving from motel to motel, switching towns like I was being hunted. And in a way, I was. Not by her, but by guilt. By confusion. By this gnawing thought that maybe she was right. Maybe I was weak. Maybe I wasn't man enough to deal with the messy parts of love. Maybe real men stay and take care of the baby, even if it isn't theirs. But then I remembered the message on her iPad. I told you he'll raise it. He's too soft to leave. That wasn't love. That was a chess move. I was her pawn. Her backup plan. Her safety net with a beating heart and a tax return. And just when I thought things couldn't get more twisted, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring. Then it rang again. And again. Finally, I answered. A man's voice. Nervous. Quiet. Is this Curtis? Yeah. Silence. Then, I think we need to talk. About Tessa. My stomach dropped. I didn't recognize the voice, but it felt familiar. Like something I'd heard in passing at a party or over the phone in the background. I asked who he was. He hesitated. Then said, I'm Adam. I work with her. Or, I did. I stayed silent. He sighed. I think I'm the father. I felt the air punch its way out of my chest. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Not a word. Not even a sound. I didn't know she was married at first, he went on. She said you were separated. That you were cold. That you didn't want kids. I believed her. She said I was the only one who made her feel alive. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I could hear how sincere he was. He sounded broken. Like he'd been chewed up and spit out the same way I had. The same sad tremble in his voice. The same weight in his pause. I found out the truth 3 days ago, he said. And when I told her I couldn't be part of something so toxic, she said it didn't matter, because you were going to raise the baby anyway. That was it. That was the exact moment I realized something horrifying. This wasn't just betrayal. This was strategy. She hadn't stumbled into a mistake. She had built an entire escape route. From her job. From the man she cheated with. From motherhood. She was handing me the child like a sinking ship hands off its black box. I hung up without saying goodbye. And for the first time in years, I let myself be angry. Not the kind of anger that explodes, but the kind that simmers. That carves its name into your ribs and makes you promise you'll never forget what someone did to you. That night, I deleted our shared calendar. Canceled the lease on the apartment under my name. And most importantly, I shut off my phone. I didn't owe her a reaction. She chose her part in this story. Now it was my turn to write mine. I didn't surface for days. Not to friends. Not to family. Not even to my own reflection. I stayed hidden inside a cheap basement Airbnb with buzzing pipes overhead and a lopsided futon that threatened to fold me in half each night. It wasn't glamorous, but it was far enough from the life I left behind and close enough to the pain that I could still touch it whenever I needed to remind myself why I left. It's funny how quiet can be deafening when you've been gaslit for years. The kind of silence that makes you hear things you weren't ready to hear, memories, patterns. The small, subtle ways someone reprograms your reality without you ever noticing. Like how Tessa always insisted on doing the taxes alone, saying I was too slow with numbers. Or how she'd joke in front of friends about how I couldn't satisfy her emotionally, only to follow up with, but he's loyal, and that's rare. Or the way she'd tell me she was doing this for us, every time she bought something extravagant with our joint credit card. Little things. Harmless on the surface. But when you lay them out like breadcrumbs, they form a path to a version of her that didn't love me, she used me. It was on the 4th night of my disappearance when I finally broke down and opened my email. Not my regular inbox, the one I used for subscriptions and grocery coupons, but the old one I hadn't touched in months. It was the email I used back when we were first dating. I don't know what I was looking for. Maybe a piece of myself I lost somewhere. Maybe proof that there was a time when she wasn't like this. That's when I found it. An unread message, dated 6 months ago. Subject line. Just in case you ever wonder who she really is. I almost deleted it. I thought it was spam. But curiosity got the better of me. The sender's name was just a single letter. M. Inside was a wall of text, and attached were 3 voice recordings. The email started like this. Curtis, I know this is going to sound insane, but please read everything before you decide I'm a lunatic. I'm not asking for anything. I just want you to know the truth about Tessa. She's not who you think she is. And she hasn't been for a long time. The writer claimed to be someone Tessa had tangled up with at her last job. He said she lied to him, manipulated him, and nearly ruined his career. He said she had a pattern, an alarming one. Find a man with stability. Make him believe she needs him. Use him as a shield from her real life. And then when she inevitably created chaos, she'd hide behind his calm demeanor and blame him for why she was acting out. I wanted to call it fiction. I wanted to say he doesn't know her like I do. But I couldn't, because every word he wrote fit. I played the first recording. It was low quality, muffled, but the voices were clear. Tessa. He's too scared to leave. That's the thing about men like Curtis. They confuse endurance with love. He'll let me walk all over him and still thank me for staying. There was laughter in the background. Another voice chimed in, asking if she felt guilty. Tessa again. Guilty? No. I picked someone safe. I needed someone like that. Someone boring enough to trust me without checking. I stopped the recording. My hands were shaking. Not with rage. Not with fear. Just with the kind of numbness that comes from realizing you were never the person someone loved. You were just their plan B. I didn't listen to the other two recordings. I couldn't. Not yet. Instead, I sat in that rotting basement, surrounded by peeling paint and flickering light, and felt something unfamiliar take root in my chest. Not sadness. Not self-pity. Clarity. For the first time since I walked away, I knew without a shadow of a doubt that I was never going back. Not to her. Not to our apartment. Not to the version of myself who accepted crumbs and called it affection. I opened a blank note on my phone and started typing out a timeline of everything she'd told me in the past year. Her excuses, her business trips, her so-called therapy sessions. The puzzle pieces began to fall into place, and with every line, the picture got uglier. She had played me like a script, and I had read every line with conviction. Until now. That night, I did something petty. I admit it. I ordered a pizza and used our shared account to pay for it. Just one final withdrawal from the emotional bankruptcy she left me in. The next morning, I closed the account permanently. I also sent one message. Not to her. To Adam, the man she claimed got her pregnant. It was short. You were her mistake. I was her fool. Let's not play her game anymore. No reply. But I didn't need one. I wasn't looking for closure. I was writing my beginning. And trust me, that beginning was about to take a turn I never saw coming. It's strange how someone can erase you without ever deleting your number. That's what haunted me most after that night. The idea that I was still technically in her life, just in a muted, invisible, background kind of way. Like an app you never open but don't uninstall, just in case. It had been 10 days since I left, and I hadn't heard her voice since that morning when she handed me that twisted gift and called it honesty. 10 days of flickering motel lamps and stiff pillows. 10 days of listening to the plumbing rattle through thin walls while I scribbled scattered thoughts into notebooks I hadn't used in years. And yet, in all that silence, she still hadn't said anything real. Not once. Not in her 27 texts. Not in her 6 voicemails. Not even in the short, icy message she sent my mother to tell her I was going through something. No, I was unraveling something. And she had no idea. That morning, I did something even I didn't expect. I went back. Not inside the house. Not even to the driveway. I parked across the street, half hidden behind a delivery van, and just watched. She came out around 8:15, right on cue. She always left at the same time, Monday through Friday, with her hair tied back and her coffee in the same stainless steel tumbler I bought her last Christmas. I watched her unlock the car with one hand and scroll her phone with the other. She was smiling. Not crying. Not mourning. Not pacing the porch hoping I'd return. Just smiling at something on her screen. I didn't need to guess what. Or who. That smile was for. Because it was the same one she used to give me, back when I thought I was the only one in her orbit. When she drove off, I got out of my car and walked to the porch. My hands were sweating, and I could feel my pulse in my throat, but I needed to see it for myself. To know how quickly I'd been replaced. There was a package sitting at the door. Addressed to her. The name below hers? Adam. Same last name. My last name. I stood there, reading it over and over, as if somehow I could unsee it. But no, it was real. She had started using my name for him, claiming our shared identity like it was something she could just hand over to the next guy like a house key. It made me feel sick. She was rewriting the story already. and I was being erased. I didn't take the package. I didn't leave a note. I didn't key her car or smash a window like some unhinged ex on a reality show. I just stood there for 5 full minutes, then walked away. Quietly. Just like before. Because I wanted her to feel that silence. Not anger. Not rage. But the kind of absence that burns. That night, I checked her social media accounts for the first time since I left. And that's when the final nail slid right into place. She had changed her relationship status. Not to single. Not to in a relationship. But to private. All our photos were gone. Every tagged event, every anniversary post, every dumb video we recorded while cooking dinner together vanished. It was like I'd never existed. But that wasn't the worst part. No, the worst part was the caption she'd left under her new profile picture, a filtered shot of her standing on a rooftop bar in a city skyline I didn't recognize. It said, "Starting over, on my terms. No apology. No regret. Just a smile and a lie wrapped in self-empowerment." I slammed my laptop shut so hard the screen flickered. And for a long time, I just sat on the floor with my back against the bed frame, heart thudding in my ears like war drums. How do you compete with someone who rewrites the truth before you're even done grieving? I wanted to fight back. I wanted to shout my side from every rooftop. But I didn't. Because I knew that kind of war only ends in ashes, and she'd already burned enough of me. Instead, I called my sister, Jordan. I hadn't spoken to her in a while, partly because she lives 2 states away, and partly because I'd always felt like a burden. But when she answered, and I told her everything, no filters, no fluff, just the raw, ugly version of it all, she didn't lecture me. She didn't offer cliches. She just said, "Come here. Stay as long as you need. We'll rebuild from zero." I packed my things that night. I left the keys to our apartment in a locked box outside her gym. I didn't leave a note. Just the ultrasound photo she thought I never saw, folded once, with a single word written on the back. Goodbye. I didn't know what kind of man I was anymore. But I knew exactly what kind I would never be again. It was raining sideways when I got to Jordan's place. The kind of rain that makes your suitcase heavier and your shirt feel like wet newspaper. She met me at the front door with this look that only siblings can give, part anger, part heartbreak, part finally. Her arms wrapped around me like I was still her little brother coming home after skinning my knees, and I let her hold me longer than I should have. I hadn't realized how much I needed someone who didn't want an explanation, just to be there. Jordan's apartment was small, 2 bedrooms stacked on top of each other in a converted brownstone in a neighborhood that smelled like fried onions and old libraries. Her living room had bookshelves that leaned like they were eavesdropping, and a worn-out blue couch that swallowed you whole if you sat too far back. It was perfect. I didn't talk much the first few days. I helped walk her dog, sorted mail, cooked some meals, and slept more than I had in months. Jordan kept the TV low and her questions lower. She gave me space, but her presence filled the room like a safety net. There were no emotional interrogations, no probing looks, just quiet, steady companionship. And that silence helped me breathe. Then, on the 6th day, something shifted. I had just finished folding laundry when her doorbell rang. Jordan wasn't home. She had gone to work that morning, trusting me with her spare key and a fridge full of leftover Thai. The ring echoed through the apartment once, twice, then stopped. I didn't move, didn't check the peephole, just stood there, frozen, holding a dish towel in one hand like a shield. My heart began to thump in my throat before I even heard her voice. "Curtis," she called, muffled through the door. It was her. Tessa. I backed away instinctively, breath catching like I'd just been caught red-handed for existing. She rang the bell again. "Curtis, I know you're in there. Jordan's neighbors said you moved in last week." So much for subtlety. "I just want to talk," she said. Her voice wasn't angry or desperate, it was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that makes you realize how practiced someone is at pretending. "I'm not here to argue," she continued. I don't understand. You disappeared. You didn't give me a chance to explain." Explain? That word did something to me. My fingers clenched around the dish towel. I walked into the kitchen, trying to block her voice out, but she kept going. "You're overreacting, Curtis. This wasn't how it was supposed to go." There it was, the truth. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She expected me to break, to crawl back, to cave under the weight of guilt and history and her weaponized tears. I didn't answer. I didn't give her the satisfaction. I just stood silently behind the wall, my back pressed to the fridge, and listened. "I know it was a shock," she said, "but I thought you loved me enough to stay. I thought you knew me." I almost laughed, because I did know her now. That's why I was gone. A pause followed. Then came the final card. "I'm keeping the baby," she said softly, "and I want you to be part of its life. You're still his father in all the ways that matter." That line. That damn line. You're still his father. She had spent the better part of our marriage convincing me I was boring, too sensitive, not assertive enough, too safe. And now that the real father had bolted, she wanted me to step back in and raise a child created through betrayal, like a stand-in actor hired to finish a film after the lead ran away. No. I sat down on the couch and waited in silence until I heard her footsteps retreat. Even then, I didn't move. I stayed there until the sun dipped behind the buildings and Jordan came home, kicking snow off her boots with an annoyed sigh. "She was here, wasn't she?" she asked, dropping her keys. I nodded. "She'll be back," she said, crossing her arms. "That type doesn't give up unless they've destroyed every version of you that ever loved them." That night, I opened the second voice recording from the anonymous email. Tessa again. But this time, she wasn't joking. "I don't regret it," she said to someone, probably Adam. "Curtis was never enough. He loved me like a child loves a bedtime story, soft, predictable, easy to fall asleep to. I needed chaos. I needed passion. I needed to feel alive." There was a silence before she added, "But he'll come back. They always do." I closed the file. I wasn't going back. But she wasn't done. And what she did next? It would make everything that came before look like foreplay. I thought she would give up after that night outside Jordan's door. I expected her to disappear the way I had. Quietly. Without fanfare. Without announcements. But I had forgotten one critical detail. Tessa didn't let go of control. She didn't accept silence. And she never, ever walked away without creating a story in which she still looked like the victim. The envelope came 3 days later. Thick, expensive cardstock. Pale yellow with elegant calligraphy and a gold ribbon tied in a perfect bow. Jordan found it in her mailbox and brought it inside, eyebrows raised. "You want me to burn it or open it?" she asked. I told her to open it. I don't know why. Morbid curiosity, maybe. Or maybe I was hoping it was something else, a peace offering, a legal form, a final closure. But no. Inside was an invitation. A baby shower. Not just any baby shower, a full-blown celebration of life, complete with RSVP cards, cutest daddy section, and a section titled Letters for Baby, from both parents. She had written my name at the bottom, as if I were still involved. As if I hadn't disappeared the moment she weaponized my loyalty against me. Jordan's mouth dropped open as she read it. "She's hosting it at the rooftop venue downtown," she said. "That's not cheap." I snatched the card and stared at it. There, in cursive, were the words "hosted by Tessa and Curtis Langley." She hadn't just ignored my departure. She'd rewritten it. In her version of the story, I was still in the picture. Still her doting husband. Still the idiot lining up onesies and building cribs for a child I didn't create. A child she lied about. A child she was now using as a weapon. And the guest list? Mutual friends. Her mother. Her cousins. My boss from my last job. She'd invited people from every chapter of our life together, because she wanted to force my presence back into the narrative, whether I agreed or not. Jordan handed me the RSVP card. "She's drawing you back in." I nodded, but not in the way she thinks. That night, I opened my laptop and started drafting a message. Not to her. To every single person on that guest list whose email I could find. I wrote it as clearly and calmly as I could, without bitterness, without accusations, just facts. I told them the truth. That I was no longer living with Tessa. That we were not expecting a child together. That I was not attending the event she was hosting under false pretenses. I even attached a screenshot of the ultrasound photo she had discarded in the trash and a voice clip from the recordings I had received. Nothing graphic. Nothing defamatory. Just enough to make the cracks visible. I didn't expect much. But then, 2 days later, I got an email back. It was from my former coworker, Shelby. We hadn't spoken in almost a year. "Curtis, I'm so sorry. I RSVP'd to the shower last week and just thought you were being quiet about everything because you were overwhelmed. I had no idea. She made it sound like you were just having a hard time adjusting. This makes so much more sense now. Thank you for telling us." And that was just the first reply. They kept coming. One from an old college friend. One from her cousin. Another from a neighbor. All echoing the same disbelief. All shaken by how much she had masked the truth with charm and performance. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel powerful. If anything, I felt like I just ripped open an old wound in front of a crowd. But at least now they knew. At least now I wasn't just the man who vanished, I was the man who finally spoke. But it didn't end there. 2 days before the baby shower, Jordan's doorbell rang again. We both froze. The dog barked once and then ran to the corner of the room like it knew something was wrong. This time, there was no polite knock. Just a hard, steady pounding. Like she owned the door. Jordan opened it, arms crossed, jaw tight. Tessa stood there in a bright blue dress that hugged her stomach, holding an iPad and a half-eaten cup of frozen yogurt. "Is he here?" she asked, like she was asking for a package delivery. "No," Jordan said flatly. "And even if he was, he wouldn't come out." Tessa tilted her head. "He's being dramatic. He's ruining this for everyone. I'm not the villain here." "You lied," Jordan replied. Repeatedly. Tessa rolled her eyes. "I told him the truth. That's more than most people would do." After the fact, Jordan shot back. Tessa didn't answer. She just shoved the iPad toward her, and on the screen was a photo, me and Jordan on the couch, laughing at a video, taken from outside the window. "I know he's here," she said, calm and slow. "And he's going to regret making this into a war." Jordan didn't flinch. "You should leave now." Tessa stared at her for a long, chilling moment before finally turning away and walking back down the sidewalk. Her heels clicking like the punctuation of a threat she hadn't finished saying. I didn't sleep that night, because I knew exactly what she was about to do. She couldn't get me back. So now, she tried to ruin me. She was always better at the long game. That was something I had underestimated. Tessa didn't scream when she was angry. She didn't throw things, didn't slam doors, didn't raise her voice to make a point. She smiled. She waited. And then she quietly pulled the wires that held your life together, one by one, until everything collapsed, and you didn't even realize she had touched it. The baby shower went ahead without me. Jordan and I didn't go near the venue. I heard from one of my former coworkers that she'd told everyone I had relapsed, that I was struggling with the idea of fatherhood and emotionally unstable. I didn't even know what that was supposed to mean. I'd never struggled with mental health or addiction, and yet now I was being recast as the fragile, disappearing husband who abandoned a pregnant woman in her hour of need. She was rewriting the ending of our story, even while the final chapters hadn't finished playing out. But she wasn't just telling people lies. She was planting them where they could grow. It started with small things. My old college friend, Damon, stopped answering texts. Then I got a polite but strangely cold email from my former supervisor at the consulting firm, thanking me for my past work and wishing me well in my personal recovery. Recovery? What recovery? And then came the worst part. Jordan handed me a manila envelope that had come in the mail. No return address, no markings, just my name in thick, blocky letters. Inside was a printed document, several pages long, filled with carefully crafted language and legal terminology. I knew what it was before I even finished the first paragraph. She had filed for abandonment. She was attempting to claim I had willingly abdicated parental responsibility and was in a state of emotional and psychological deterioration that made me unfit to engage in shared custody or decision-making. I stared at the papers, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst through my ribs. There were fabricated timelines, notes about my mental state that she had no authority to diagnose, allegations about past verbal volatility that had no basis in anything except her imagination. And worst of all, she included photos of me looking disheveled, snapped while I was at the motel, clearly taken from a distance. She'd been following me, documenting me, preparing this long before I'd ever walked out that door. "She's trying to legally tie you to the baby," Jordan said, reading the documents over my shoulder. "She's building a story that paints her as the calm, rational mother, and you as the unstable, absentee wreck." I couldn't breathe. I literally couldn't. I stepped out into the hallway, dropped to the floor, and pressed my palms against the cold tiles, trying to slow down the spinning. The betrayal had leveled up. It wasn't emotional anymore. It wasn't personal. This was warfare. She wasn't just rewriting history. She was burning the evidence of the truth. We spent that night making calls. I contacted a lawyer friend of Jordan's, a no-nonsense woman named Elise who specialized in family law. When I told her the full story, she didn't flinch or ask if I was exaggerating. She simply said, "She's trying to back you into a corner, so you either fold or fight on her terms." Elise helped me draft a response. A firm, clean rebuttal of the abandonment claim, with supporting evidence from witnesses, timestamped location history, emails, and most importantly, the audio recordings I had saved. She told me we'd need more if this escalated, but for now, this would stop her in her tracks. Then Elise said something I'll never forget. She doesn't want custody or co-parenting. She wants ownership of the story, of the narrative, of you. And now that she's lost that, she'll burn everything around her to make sure you don't win either. I nodded. I'd already started to see it. The next morning, she showed up at my parents' house. Uninvited. Smiling. Holding a pie. My mom called me that afternoon, voice shaking. She came by. She said you were having a breakdown, and that she was just trying to be supportive. She cried, Curtis. I didn't know what to believe. That was her strategy now. To infiltrate my circle. Infect them with doubt. See confusion in the people I loved until they didn't know what to believe anymore. If she couldn't make me stay, she'd try to make it so I'd have nowhere to return to. So I beat her to it. That weekend, I posted a single message on my old Facebook account, which I hadn't touched in nearly 2 years. It was simple. No drama. No bitterness. Just clarity. To those of you who have heard rumors about my sudden absence or personal well-being, I want to state plainly, I left a toxic and dishonest relationship after discovering serious betrayal. I am not struggling. I am not unstable. I am recovering from manipulation, not depression. I wish no harm to anyone involved. But I won't be silenced or rewritten. The response was overwhelming. People messaged privately. Some apologized. Some confessed they'd always felt something was off about her. One even admitted she had tried to flirt with him while we were married. I felt seen for the first time in weeks, not pitted, but believed. And that's when I got the text. Short. No punctuation. No warmth. You think you've won. This isn't over. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I turned the phone off and slid it into a drawer. She was wrong. It was over. Just not the way she thought. I woke up the morning of the final hearing not with fear, but with calm. That surprised me. After everything Tessa had done, the lies, the fake legal claims, the manipulation, I should have been angry, bitter, exhausted. But instead, I felt like a man standing on the edge of something new. Not because she was done trying to ruin me, but because I was finally done letting her succeed. The hearing wasn't about custody. There was no child of mine to fight for. It was about clearing my name, officially. Elise, my lawyer, walked in beside me like a storm in heels, her folders brimming with evidence. Photos, messages, audio clips, witness letters. A timeline so airtight, it could suffocate every lie Tessa had told the court. Tessa arrived late. Of course. Hair perfect. Belly slightly larger. Wearing soft pastel tones like she was auditioning for sympathy. She didn't look at me as she walked past. But I looked at her. And I saw it, the flicker. That flash in her eyes that told me for the first time, she was nervous. The judge asked basic questions. Elise presented the evidence. Tessa gave a rehearsed monologue about being abandoned by the only man she ever truly trusted. But her words had no weight. Not anymore. Not against the truth laid out in neat, devastating order. The judge ruled that I had no legal or financial responsibility for the child. The abandonment claim was dismissed, and any future action attempting to falsely assign me as a guardian or partner would be considered harassment. It was over. Tessa didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't even make eye contact. She simply gathered her coat, stood up slowly, and walked out of the courtroom like the performance had ended and she was packing up props from a failed show. Outside, Elise clapped me on the shoulder. She underestimated the quiet ones, she said with a smirk. I smiled, and for once, it felt real. Not a survival reflex. Not a polite mask. But mine. Over the next few weeks, I started to rebuild. I got a new phone number. Deleted the old accounts. Moved into a small apartment near the edge of town with big windows and silence that didn't feel empty anymore. I picked up freelancing again, slowly reconnecting with work I loved before I became someone else's background character. Jordan came by often. We painted the walls together, laughed over bad takeout, and left the door open to the future without rushing into it. My mom called to apologize for doubting. I forgave her instantly. She was a good person caught in someone else's smoke. One evening, I took a long walk through the park. The sun was setting behind a row of sycamores, casting that soft orange light that makes everything look like an apology. I sat on a bench with a notebook, the same one I'd scribbled my pain into for weeks. And for the first time, I wrote something different. Not about her, not about betrayal, but about peace, about reclaiming myself, about how sometimes the strongest thing you can do isn't fight or scream or prove anything. It's to walk away and not go back. I never saw Tessa again after that. Last I heard, she moved closer to her mother's place, Started telling people she chose single motherhood. Maybe she believed it. Maybe she didn't. Either way, it wasn't my burden anymore. She told me once I was too soft to leave. But I did. And in doing so, I found the one thing she never truly offered me. Myself. That's the end of my story. I didn't get revenge. I didn't burn bridges. I just healed. And for me, that was enough.